Welcome to Power Up Your Practice. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, a law firm owner and law practice management consultant, author, podcaster, and adjunct professor. Each week, I'm so excited to invite other guests on to be able to learn from the inspiring minds and share practical tips so that we can all work smarter, serve our clients even better, and grow our firm. But after all, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. So let's power up together and continue to create the law firm and the life you deserve.
The leader, whatever you call them, managing partner, CEO, like it doesn't matter the title, but let's just use leader. Their number one job, the most important thing they do is set the strategy for the firm. And what that means is figuring out what the differentiators are. Like why hire your firm and not somebody else's?
Welcome, everyone. This is Ruby Powers again with Power Up Your Practice. Excited to have a new guest to the show, Tara Landis, who's the founder and CEO of Bellrock. In the last 25 years or so, she has been the secret weapon of 300 plus small business leaders have used her to solve operational challenges. And not only that, she's certified change management practitioner from the ProSci Institute and a licensed influence trainer from the Cialdini Institute. The institute based off of Robert Cialdini, who wrote the book Influence, which the psychology of persuasion. So that's super exciting. And today we're going to talk a lot about management, leadership, and just for ourselves and our team, and how we can bring that into improving our firm. So Tara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me and good work on all that crazy pronunciation.
Yeah, I had to think a little for a second there. So you help in unleashing the potential and making that transformational change to helping people realize their goals and dreams. I think that there's our audience, a lot of law firm owners, managing partners, right-hand associates, people just started a firm, that type of thing. So we got all the gamut of. But I think management and leadership are topics that we haven't discussed a lot on our show, and I really I'd love to hear from your take, from all your experience. And I think one thing you were talking about was just like the difference between leadership and management, and then maybe we can walk through a journey through for some best practices and how we can improve our own skill set as leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I've been doing this for 25 years. And when we work with professional service firms and in particular law firms, actually, what I've found is that lawyers go to school for a long time and they're very smart people and they learn a lot of things about law,
Mhm.
which is really good. And they practice law. Um, and it seems to be that the fact that they're also running a business and managing a business and that is another discipline, sometimes that gets left on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
So you can be an amazing lawyer, an amazing individual contributor, and maybe you're good at building a practice too and you're getting lots of clients in the door, but it's like the people management side seems to either get left behind or just be assumed that people can manage themselves. And so when we work in those kinds of environments, we help them come up with the frameworks for management and the frameworks for actually running your practice and keeping your people engaged and motivated and happy to be there. So that's sort of where our practice falls when it comes to law firms in general. And specifically, your question was about the difference between leadership and management, though. And the way I like to think about that is I actually borrow a model from Stephen Covey, who wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he tells a fable of a company. So it's not a real story, but it's a company, the whole company has gone on a plane to go somewhere. And tragically, the plane crashes in the middle of the jungle and everybody in the company is on that plane. But miraculously, they all survive unscathed, except unfortunately for the pilot and the co-pilot who have perished. So here they are in the middle of the jungle. What are they going to do? And the individual contributors, let's say just like the lawyers in the firm and maybe some of the administrative support and like the financial people, they all climb out of the plane. And it turns out that in the belly of the plane were all these machetes. Okay. So
Mhm.
there they start hacking their way through the jungle. And that's what the individual contributors to do. But the managers, they're standing behind them and they're making sure that they've got the right people at the front and that all the machetes are sharpened the way they need to be, and they're passing water up to the front to make sure people stay hydrated. They're saying you need a break and you need to get back in there, and they're managing all of the resources. But eventually somebody, the managing partner, the leadership, they climb a tree and they say, I got good news and bad news. Good news
Mhm.
is we're making great progress, but the
Mhm.
bad news is we're going in the wrong direction. The
Mhm.
city's over behind us. And so I think of that as the difference between leadership, management, and just individual contributors or like the lawyers in the firm. And so we focus on the managers and the leaders within our practice.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. That was really, you had me on that whole story. That's good. I'm going to use
Right.
that. I was like, what's going to happen?
Right. But I
Um,
but I do find that lawyers often don't get the same level of education when it comes to the people management side of
oh
things, and
hell
they,
no, we don't.
yeah,
That's like an afterthought. Like,
right,
I mean, I think most of the stuff I know it's because I had jobs before college, during law school. I had a gap year between high school and college and law school. I had to hustle lots of different ways and to pay for things.
hmm
And so, that's where I learned a lot of those things. And then now, funny enough, I'm teaching law practice management
hmm
at a law school, but to think about all the skills that I need want to teach, it's like 14 hours of instruction. It doesn't feel like enough. Or I
yeah,
guess it's 14 weeks of 2 hours. It's 28 hours. But anyway, no, I,
yeah.
I completely agree. So I see something you've observed a lot of. What patterns have you observed in leaders who manage and can break through the plateaus and those who can achieve lasting growth?
Well, I think one of the sort of overall themes would be uh, paying attention to the Dunning-Kruger effect. So that's sort of a bias where it's the people who know the least about a subject that sort of think they know the most because you don't know what
Mm,
you don't know. And the
yeah.
people that know the most tend to really see their gaps and actually underestimate their abilities. And so I
Mm,
think you can apply that when you talk about management in a law practice environment. There are things, the lawyer themselves may feel very well educated in law, but also then know so much about what they don't know. Like, oh, I've got to learn this and I've got to research these things and I've got to know this other stuff. On the people management side, they may think it is something that you just learn in 28 hours and away you go. And so what happens is people tend to, so they learn management from whoever managed them before.
mhm,
And we hope they had really great managers and that
yeah,
they learned some positive habits,
yeah.
but they may not have. They may have had terrible managers that had them working 300 hours a week and gave them their assignment on Friday at 7 p.m. just as they were walking out the door and said, I need this Monday morning early. Like, we don't know what kind of exposure they had. When they had those sort of terrible managers, often they define how they want to manage people, how that practice is going to work for them as well. I'm not going to do it like they did. Like, the one thing I know for sure is I'm not going to be like that person because they were terrible. And
Yeah.
when you see, if you find encounter managers on that side of the spectrum, often we find them buried in work, burning out because they don't want to delegate anything. They don't want to hand
Yeah.
off anything that person, they don't think that person's able to do yet. And so they kind of steal that opportunity for learning and growth. Like, when that person talks about having that terrible manager, they also reluctantly kind of admit, but I learned a lot because
Mm,
I had to figure it out. I ended up learning a lot. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is, of course, that horrible manager. Maybe you had someone who's really easy on you and you're really good at your job. And so you expect everyone to be at that level at all time. And so you end up sort of having higher expectations than are reasonable. that's the spectrum that you can find out there in the managers. They're the managers that are constantly dipping down, taking the easier work from their staff because they don't want to overwhelm the staff, and it's easy for them to do it themselves, so they just do it themselves. To this other side where they're just throwing things, willy-nilly at people and expecting them to perform at that senior level that those people might be not be ready for yet.
Hmm. Yeah, where I was, okay, my firm has we have about 20 or so team members ish.
Mhm.
There's contract, part-time, full-time, all the different things. And I was on a little group call with some other law firm owners, and we all had around the same size of firm, and we were talking about the importance of having like an office manager or an administrator or something,
Yeah.
and then also just like building out the leadership mid-management level. And I realized that I don't know how many years ago that I really had to build that out, and that because it was like sort of, I don't know, House of Cards sort of sounds like a bad analogy, but like I was trying to build up my
Mhm.
organization and my accountability chart, and I knew that it couldn't just all I could only manage maybe 7 or 8 people. I think that's what
That's right.
they say is possible. And so if I could build up my leadership team, then they could manage the rest, because otherwise that's what was happening. I would
Yeah.
be like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and it was starting to crumble because I couldn't do the work and manage that many people without having a leadership mid-level, mid-management level. So this last handful of years, I've been really building that up, and then realizing just like, how do you teach management and leadership? How do you encourage and help flourish that? And because a lot of times, like you were saying, a lot of them would be like, oh, it's, I should just do it myself and get it done right, and a lot of lawyers have that same a lot of humans in general have that
Yes,
impression about life, right?
absolutely.
And I'm like, no, no, like, because like if I had that thought, then I wouldn't have the firm that I have, and I wouldn't have the systems in place. And like, even side note, I'm reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, the investing version, and that whole cash flow chart about how the
Mhm.
difference between the self-employed, where you basically create a job, versus B, you created a business with systems.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective. I was already doing that until I saw that, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. But it's true, because if you're just sticking in that I can do everything myself, and you're not going to delegate or build people up because you're like
Yeah.
afraid somehow of growing other people. I don't know what people goes through people's minds, but if the business side is like, you have to build up systems, and you need to have, um, it has to go beyond you. But
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
and we see
yeah,
that all the time. So what you're
yeah,
describing is not unusual at all. And the thing, almost all of the companies that we work with are successful. They've done a lot of things right.
hmm,
And some of those things they learned the hard way. So they sort of stumbled upon this, oh, I should only have 7 or 8 direct reports. They sort of, I mean, that information is out there. There's
hmm,
not a lot that needs to be invented when it comes to running a practice. Like most of it, somebody has figured out. The thing is, how do you access that information, right? So when you're talking about middle management, for example, lots of firms have middle management in all different industries. There are standard practices for how to run a business. And so you can tap into that information if you know it's out there. And you can get that that's why our management training program exists, because there were companies that just couldn't they didn't want to send people for an MBA. That was overkill. They
hmm,
don't need that. What they need is practical management tools that they can use right away, that they can apply to their work immediately. And our clients needed like a stable source of that education so they could put people through it and figure out if people actually even want to be people managers, or if they're being forced into it and maybe they'd just be better off just being a lawyer or being an accountant or being an engineer or whatever it is, and getting really good at that
right.
practice.
No,
So yeah, it's interesting, and I think that your experience is pretty common. One of the things that we'll do is we'll go into a company and we'll audit the foundational systems that they have in place.
mm,
Things like their cash flow forecast, or their budget, or job descriptions, or their performance management system, different things like that, different foundational business practices. And it's so interesting when you go into a firm and you find bits and pieces, but not the whole thing. And so they're missing some of the value. I'll give you an example. Job descriptions, right?
Yeah.
Some people will say a job description is, and I'm not talking about an employment contract right now.
Hmm.
I'm talking about a job description, which is the most efficient way to communicate to somebody what you want them to do for a living. Like, it's basic expectation setting.
Yeah.
And if you don't set expectations, people may still meet them, but the odds are reduced, right? So why wouldn't you set the expectation first, knowing that that increases your chance of success? But people don't create job descriptions sometimes because they say, oh, it's just an excuse for someone to say, I don't have to do that. It's not my job description. Or maybe they say, oh, we don't have time. But I'll tell you what position usually has a job description: reception. Reception usually has a job description. So does the bookkeeper. Why is that? Because those positions are pretty easy to define, and because there's often a lot of turnover in those positions. So they're going to have to rehire. So they're going to have to reset the expectations in that position over and over. You know what job almost never has a job description when we do that audit?
The CEO.
You betcha. Exactly. Now you tell me which one is more important in the organization, the CEO or the receptionist. And I have nothing against receptionists.
Yeah,
Don't
I know.
get
I
me
was about to
wrong.
say they're awesome and they
They
keep
are
me
really
running.
important and they keep a lot of things going. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm pro receptionist.
Yeah.
But if we don't have somebody climbing that tree and
Yeah.
sending us in the right direction, it doesn't matter what that receptionist is doing for a living because we're going in the wrong direction. So the leader of the firm, their whole job is to set that direction, to guide people into what they're supposed to do. They are supposed to treat everyone like a checkers piece, like they all move the
Hmm.
same way. Everybody follow me, it's going to be great. It's the managers who are treating everyone like their own unique snowflake. This person needs it this way and this person needs it that way. And a leader can also be a manager, but they're
Yeah.
wearing different hats and they really need to
Yeah.
recognize that in the moment.
I think I prefer leader, honestly, because I think managing sort of wears me out a little bit when I have to wear the other hats. Because
Well,
yeah.
I love that. That's so insightful because in fact, there are very, very few people who do their best work at both.
Mm,
And so if you look into some of the work of Gino Wickman, for example, he talks
yeah.
about the leader, the visionary, and then the integrator. So
Right.
he called the visionary is that leader, that person who sets the vision and charts the way. The integrator is the one who organizes all the resources and gets things done. And in his books, he talks about like Hewlett and Packard or the Disneys, right? Walt, he was the visionary. He was the guy that stood out front, set the vision, charted the way, revolutionary kind of stuff. But his brother was in the background, Roy,
Mhm.
running the business. And it couldn't have happened without both of those characters, although you don't hear so much about Roy.
No, it's so true because, like, I mean, execution is everything. Like, if you just have this person who has all these great ideas and you don't execute them or a way to do so, then they just fall flat. And you might be like, I already invented that, but
Yeah,
you, if you didn't patent it and sell it and do anything with it, then it just died in your head, you know. And
yeah,
but no, that's so true. I love traction and the Gino Wickman and everything. And I think when very few people I feel like have truly love that visionary entrepreneur space. But the hardest part is like if you're building your business from scratch, having to wear all the different hats to get up to
hmm
that space,
hmm
and knowing that you're changing your roles as you move through, I guess the game of running a business or something and becoming and working your
yeah,
way out of a job, I guess you could say, and sort of and running your business.
yeah. I
So
mean, I think a lot of people start a practice because they think, well, I can just do this for myself. Like I might as well
yeah,
make all the money,
yeah,
um, and maybe they don't quite appreciate the level of infrastructure that's required. So as you said, they end up working themselves out of a job, but they may have loved that job,
yeah. Yeah,
and
when I
that can
talk
be
about that
problematic.
too. to people, they're like, look at me weird. They're like, why would I work myself out of a job? I was like, well, that's really what the entrepreneur should be doing, so that you can do other things and or go where you want to go in the organization, but it still can run, without you, or it's better because of you, but like it doesn't need you to be in that space. This episode is sponsored by Candle AI, the legal email assistant that helps legal teams spend less time on client emails. You heard me right, spending less time on emails. Candle AI works with both Gmail and Outlook, so you don't have to learn a new tool. And then it connects with popular case management systems like Clio, Filevine, INSSoom, and more to come. It instantly shows you your case and the client details the moment you open a client email, and right inside your inbox. Then that means less context switching and time spent jumping to different tabs to figure out what you need to respond. Candle can also draft context-aware responses to client emails and makes it easy to create, edit, and manage your email templates. If you want to save time and take back control of your inbox, check out Candle AI. I highly suggest it.
Yes, if you're indispensable, it's running you. You're not
Right.
running it. Yeah.
Right. And you're sort of like the bottleneck. I feel like when I did this Goldman Sachs 10,000 Businesses program like a decade ago, and it was a really good exercise because I had to get away from the office for like 5 hours at a time, 4 hours at a time. And that's when everything would fall apart. and,
Yeah.
and so it was like, note to self, find a way so that it doesn't fall
Yeah.
apart when I walk away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's such a good test too. I started my company in 2008. And for the past few years, I've been able to take July off.
Nice.
But that doesn't mean we don't close the company.
Right.
I just take July off, and we have the systems and processes to do it. It's easy. It wasn't easy to begin with, but now we have the systems, the process, the people, everything's in place. It's not dependent on me, and that feels wonderful.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think that goes with this next question about, I think sometimes people talk about stepping fully in that president or CEO role, but it like what does that look like? Let's say in the
Mhm.
law firm, and how do you get there?
I love that question because people often don't have the vision of what that's supposed to look like. So, first of all, there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
What I will say though is that the leader, whatever you call them, managing partner, CEO, like it doesn't matter the title, but let's just use leader. Their number one job, the most important thing they do is set the strategy for the firm.
Mhm.
And what that means is figuring out what the differentiators are. Like why hire your firm and not somebody else's? And what kind of people we need, not selecting the people per se, but what kind of people are we looking for? What are the behavioral values that are important to us? And where's this thing headed? And so that's their number one job. And they're the only one that can do it. Nobody else can do that job. They also might enjoy lawyering a bit. They also might enjoy looking at the finances. They also might enjoy doing all sorts of things in the business, but their number one job that only they can do is setting the strategy.
Nice.
So that means they have to. So what does their day to day look like? Well, they're setting it or they're reinforcing it with the people inside the organization and the people outside the organization. So they have a job to like go meet with other firms, to meet with major clients, to pay attention in industry associations because they are the face of the organization. They're the leader, and they need that outside information to bring back to refine their strategy. So they're spending time golfing, and that's okay. And they feel guilty because you can't bill for that, but it's actually the job is to go and have lunch with people and understand what's going on in the market and see the clients and all that stuff, but it feels so wrong because billing is everything, right? But it's actually that's what the job is.
Yeah, they're wearing the different hats between, if you go back like to E-Myth about the
Hmm.
technician, manager, and entrepreneur, um, like as you go through that journey, if you continue to progress, it feels weird to go from one to the other. And you might still be like a managing attorney doing a lot of
Yeah.
legal aspects, but maybe not like the whole case depends on you. I'll do consultations and I'll review cases and I'll occasionally go to like government interviews or do a hearing, just sort of like to keep knowing what's going on and have a
Yeah.
pulse of things. Um, and also operationally know like, how much time things take and like how could things be done better, but that's not my primary focus.
Right.
And another thing I've been seeing with a lot of my colleagues that they're making like a priority to block off like an hour or two in the morning to really just think high level and to be able to keep that strategy as opposed to being reactionary or letting their inbox be their to-do list
Yes.
and sort of getting down into the nitty-gritty and sort of as opposed to being more of a high level strategy view,
Hmm.
climbing the tree and see what's going on in the world.
Yeah, it's very important to block time for that kind of activity. My dad used to call it shower time because, and I don't know if this works for you, but it does for me. Like when I'm in the shower, that's when the good ideas come. And it's
Yeah.
because you're sort of in this empty white space. There's nothing else for you to do or think about. So you're
Yeah.
just sort of in the moment. It's a bit meditative. And that's when the ideas come. Of course, you can't bill for shower time in general, but it is where some of the best ideas happen. And so scheduling that blank space is actually an important part of the job.
Yeah, I actually wrote a lot about that in my book because I think we sort of in that guilt of feeling like we need to be productive but we could
Yeah.
be productive by not having everything booked minute to minute and having that quiet time to just sort of like to reflect and let thoughts come to you.
Yeah, Adam Grant talks about breaks not being a departure from productivity, but a part of productivity. And the best breaks, the most restorative, we need to rest. Like we're humans, we need to rest. And the
Mhm.
best breaks are with someone instead of solo. They're
Mm.
outside instead of inside. They are fully detached from work instead of semi-detached from work. So
Mm.
if you were to grab one of your colleagues and go for a walk around the block and talk about the latest TV shows you watched, that would be considered a restorative break.
Mm. That's funny. On one of the last episodes, I just mentioned about how where our office is in a cute little a little house in the
Hmm.
Houston Heights, and I actually do that. I do like walk and talk with my team.
Right?
I keep a pair of tennis shoes in the office, and then I have my little garden and things like that. But if I can stand up and move around and go see some scenery, and also I feel like it's so good for my eyes too, because I'm not just in
Yeah.
front of a screen. I have like depth perception and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And in fact, even if you think about it, especially and now this is, maybe you're not supposed to say this, but especially with men, actually, women, we grew up, or not grew up, but we're sitting around the campfire and like weaving baskets and stuff. And so from a anthropological sort of circumstance, we're used to sitting eye to eye and talking
Mm,
about things.
mm,
But the men were out roaming the savannah looking for things. And so eyeball to eyeball actually isn't even the best way for them to communicate. And
huh,
so if you want to have a really good conversation with your son, for example, you're better off going out and having a catch and throwing the ball around or
yeah.
doing something while you're talking, instead of like sitting across the dinner table eyeball to eyeball and then what happened in your day. And parents talk about that a lot, like some of their best conversations happen in the car with the kids in the back seat, and because you're not
Yeah.
looking at each other. So walking one-on-one meetings are fantastic strategy, and we should be having regular one-on-ones, but doing it while you're getting some physical exercise and while you're outdoors, fantastic.
Oh, I just feel like you gave a lot of good nuggets. And in fact, the best time I ever had a good bonding moment with my son was when we were at the Rocky Mountain National Park. We went on a hike. We climbed about
Hmm.
a hill a mile high
Hmm.
in a short period of time, but he and I were the only ones of the family of four who could do it because the other two had altitude sickness. And so, and then his phone wouldn't work, right, because of
Right.
the reception. So I had him, I had him to
Yeah.
myself, and of course I had to keep up with him. But I
Yeah.
mean, we had like these they were like in their 70s, and they climbed every Wednesday or something. I don't know, they were a really cute group, and they were like, oh, is that your son, the whippersnapper? He's up there,
Right.
anyway. But that's so true.
Yeah.
I think these things about life and psychology, we could use how to be better in our management and leadership,
Yeah.
with our team.
Yeah, and again, the information is out there. And so, you have a choice. Do you dig through all of these books and all of this stuff, or do you
Mhm.
hire somebody to come and just tell you the stuff and just
Yeah,
give you the stuff you need at the time that you need it? Those are the choices, really.
yeah, that's a good
Or
point.
you remain ignorant. That's the third
Oh,
choice.
yeah. That's a door we're not gonna let our listeners go down, that
Right.
door. Yeah, that's not allowed. They're listening because they're improving and they want to become better, and I mean,
Yeah, and it's a huge first step. Like just listening to podcasts, particularly this one, it's a huge first step. And the next best thing they can do once they've been exposed to the idea, the the biggest thing that will determine whether it's successful or not is if they use it in the next 24 hours. If they
mm,
use whatever
mm.
nugget on any podcast you're listening to, on any book you read, if you use the thing that occurred to you and was like, wow, I think that would really impact, use that right away. Don't let it go to waste, because if you don't use it right away, you're going to either forget or you're going to forget how exactly. And if you use it, it sticks more in your memory. And then if you use it again, it might even start to become a habit for you.
Oh, that's good. I'd say that a lot with, not in that exact way, but about a CLE or something I teach.
Hmm.
Like, take a note, put something into action. If this just goes in one ear and goes out the other, then we didn't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
And that's a really good tip. I think going back to that, getting into the CEO role, I feel like sometimes we might be trying to strive for that, but we keep getting sort of sucked down into I don't know if they call that the messy middle, or somewhere like where it's like oh, I want to, but I have to go do this, this, and this, and then it's sort of hard to stay, and then you're balancing the leadership versus management versus, I don't know, the
Hmm.
entrepreneur and the technician and the manager, like all the terms we're talking about,
All the
but
things. Yeah.
all the things. Like, what any tips on like how to stay the course and get yourself into that CEO role if that's what your goal is?
Yeah, if it's what your goal is, and actually whatever your goal is, no matter where you want to be, um, the most valuable thing we have is not our money, it's our time.
Mhm.
And so I really encourage people to block time, even if it's
Yeah.
just a tiny little bit of time, but do it consistently, to practice whatever the thing is that you want to practice. If it's leadership, great. If you want to be the CEO, great. Figure out the top 5 things that CEOs do. Okay, we got to set a vision. Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, let's start with our values. Let's figure out let's uncover what our corporate core values are, the way we behave, and the rules that we wouldn't break. It's like a fireable offense, so I'm going to figure out the core values. So I'm going to spend, I don't care how much time, I'm going to spend 20 minutes a day this week, every day from 11:40 till noon, and I'm going to start thinking on this. Or
Mm.
maybe it's an afternoon a week, or whatever it is, but pick, choose your thing, and then just chip away. The That's what really matters, is regularly scheduled progress.
Wow, I love that. That's really good. That's a good tip.
Yeah. I really like time blocking as a tool. It works really well for me personally. It doesn't work for everybody. I even have a time block each week for things I don't like to do.
Oh,
So,
that's
because I
probably even
don't like,
better. Yeah.
well, I just don't like them. It's stuff like filing, or like doing my expenses, or it's this administrative stuff. It really is only me that can do most of it. Like
Mhm.
it's in my head, and I have to get it out. But it doesn't really matter. Like it has to be done eventually, but
Uh-huh.
the timing doesn't really matter. And so if I just put 2 hours a week into all that stuff, if I don't finish it, it doesn't matter. It'll be there next week. So I just have to kind of like grit my teeth through it and just spend and I can do it. I can do 2 hours. I've birthed humans out of my body. I can definitely spend 2 hours on something I don't like. Um, so I think time blocking is a great tool.
I agree. I talk a lot about the time management and the batching and blocking, and that's how I wrote my books. And also, I think that's also how you just get stuff done. Like even
Yeah.
I block off time to record videos, podcasts, all this stuff. And because if you don't, because I think that's another thing that happens is that it's almost like we start turning into this like puppet that if we let just our staff put whatever on a calendar, then we're just like, do, 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 do. What am I supposed to
Yeah.
do? But no, you need to take control of your calendar and block off what your priorities are and make, it's just like that whole, the jar and the big rocks and the
Yes.
sand and everything and put those priorities in first instead of reactionary and whatever other people are putting on your calendar.
Yeah,
Uh,
or yes, and you can even put in, office hours like you would have had at university. The professors have office hours where they're
mhm.
just there and available and they're doing whatever they're doing. Like they're not just sitting there waiting. But if somebody wants to come in, you're setting that expectation. This is a great time to interrupt me.
Yeah.
Every day between 2 and 4 is a great time to interrupt me. I'm going to be working, but come on in. Don't feel awkward about that. Like that is what that time is for. And so now we've set the expectation. Yeah, actually, you can come see me any day. This is a really good time to do it. Come on by. And now we've given them the license to sort of eat into our calendar a bit, but not really because we protected the rest of it.
No, I love that, and we've done that too, and sometimes we stop doing it, but we need to keep doing it because
Yeah.
you and the client and the staff loves that because I think the more there's like a feels like there's a stratosphere difference or something, they feel like intimidated or
Yeah.
afraid to ask or something or message or talk to you, and
Mhm.
so making sure that you give them that, let them know that it's fine to be accessible.
Yes.
That's key.
And
Okay, so
also remember that an open door policy, it does still require them to have a lot of courage to walk through that door. So you do have to walk out the door too and
yeah,
go to them. Yeah.
which I guess in hybrid since it's like having the these office hours and saying it's
Yeah.
okay. All fair game to come talk to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
Exactly.
point. So if you could give one piece of advice on to a law firm owner trying to balance, we're balancing so many things, the client service to growth to team management, what would it be?
Well, do your primary job first.
Okay.
So you're the leader. You're the only one that can do that. Make sure that happens.
Because no one else is doing it.
You're the only one that can do that. The rest of them can be lawyering and they can go get clients and they can do they can whatever, refill the coffee machine. They can do, anybody can do those things, or enough people can do those things. There's only one person who could lead.
Yeah. And I think that's thinking about like your highest and best use
Mm,
and making sure that you're fulfilling that. Because if you're doing what everybody else could do, then there's that void and then it's going
Yeah,
to impact the business.
totally.
Yeah. Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do to run a law firm? Well, you're not alone. So many law firm owners are in the same boat. That's where Staffy steps in. More than 90 firms, just like yours, are leaning on their bilingual virtual staff for legal, administrative, marketing, and client facing work, plus their full HR support. I currently have 11 team members with Staffy across my own firm and Power Strategy Group, and it's been a total game changer. Schedule a free initial consultation at staffy.cc, that's STAFI.cc, and use the code RUBY, RUBY, for $500 off. I've enjoyed all these little nuggets. This is great. I think we're moving over to my rapid questions pretty soon, but is there any other great advice on management or leadership that we didn't cover? I mean, I know we could probably talk hours on
There's
that topic alone.
so
Yeah,
much that
yeah.
people will just have to come to my website, bellrock.ca, and read all the articles and learn all about it. And they're welcome to reach out and give us a call too.
Okay, awesome. Well, in terms of rapid question, fun fact
Yeah.
question, what is your favorite board game?
Sequence.
Ooh, Oh,
Sequence is my favorite board game, but my current obsession game
uh,
is Mahjong, um,
oh,
Hong Kong edition. But that's not really a board game because there's no board.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love sequence. I have a hard time getting my people and my family to play with me because they get
Oh,
bored, but I love
well,
it. Like, I love
I'm
I'm making
I'm
mental
sad we're
notes.
so far away.
I know. I was like, can you play it electronically somehow?
Yeah.
But I just love the games with like patterns. Like my just brain just like I
Mhm.
have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah,
I haven't I played is it Mahjong like one time. I don't know which version I was playing, but it seems to be a popular thing these days.
it's
Um,
fun and very complicated.
um, what would you consider your superpower?
My superpower is my ability to make very quick, instinctual decisions. I am a very
Ooh,
decisive person, and I have a decent gut that sometimes gets me into trouble. But for the
ooh,
most part, I'm pretty good at it.
awesome.
Hmm.
And man, we make so many decisions as
Hmm.
business owners. I get decision fatigue. I started just wearing
Yeah,
like a uniform just so that I didn't have to make a decision. I know like think
yeah,
like Zuckerberg or Obama, like that's sort of a thing where you just
yeah,
like wear the same things over and over
yeah, yeah, exactly.
what would be a habit? What's a habit that you know contributes to your success?
I have a bias toward action.
Ooh,
So a habit that leads to my success is getting started.
getting
I'm pretty
started.
up for getting started. I don't have a lot of anxiety around trying. I'll just get started.
Okay.
Um, that would be a strength. On the weakness side, I don't always get finished, but at least I get started. You can't get anything done if you don't start.
Oh, right. No, that's so true. And I think just like a lot of times fear keeps people
Hmm.
holds them back. And like I think that's such an interesting topic about how do you overcome the fear and just get in motion.
Yeah, yeah. Procrastinate people. When we teach time management, people think that if they're a procrastinator, they think they need better time management skills, but they don't. They need better mood management skills. Procrastination is about not wanting to step into that discomfort in some way. And so I think that's my superpower is I can just jump into that discomfort. It doesn't make me feel uncomfortable.
Hmm. Interesting.
Mm.
What's a favorite book or podcast that you would want to recommend to our listeners?
Well, I really appreciate the book Influence by Dr. Robert Cialdini. I like it so much I got certified, and it's about the seven sort of psychological principles that allow us to persuade and ethically persuade people into saying yes to us more often.
My brother told me about that book a long, long time ago, and I was just really intrigued by it because I started seeing it everywhere,
Yeah.
in other businesses and industries, and then I was just sort of like shocked that not everybody knew about all those things, and
Totally.
yeah, and yeah, I talk about it to my students as well, and I'm always saying trying to find way. I probably should just reread it, and finding
Well,
ways.
you could take a class. I can teach it to you.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good. Well, I'm so glad to have you on their show. How can people find you and stay in touch?
Yeah, well, they can come to, as I said, www.bellrock.ca. We're a Canadian firm, and they can find me on LinkedIn pretty easy.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on. I know we did sort of a journey through management and leadership and great stories and little tidbits here and there, and just a lot of different resources on how to improve your management and your leadership skills, and just the importance of batching time and if you see being a CEO is your goal and how to get there and make that your priority as a
mhm,
leader. So, well, thank you so much, Tara. It was great to have you on. And thanks everyone who've been listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Your Practice. I'm Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We love your reviews. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us one and share this podcast with someone else so that they can know what you've been learning on our show. And make sure to check out the Power Up Your Practice book. It's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. It's packed with 25 chapters of strategies to grow and streamline your firm. And we also have the free Power Hub community on School to keep the conversation going in between the episodes. So make sure to keep powering up your practice, and we'll see you next time.